Hello everyone, welcome along to Racing Weekly, a podcast and YouTube show brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. My regular co-host, Steve Ryder, alongside me, and we welcome back Gary O'Brien to the show, which will be heavily focused on all good things from Royal Ascot, and negatives if we can find any of them. But overall, I think it's fair to say it was a very successful week, full of top quality performances. Ryan Moore, once again, top jockey. Jonathan Thady Gosden, the leading trainers. Just pipping Aidan O'Brien. What was your take on it all, Gary?
I thought it was a brilliant week. I must say, you're looking very fresh for a man that covered the amount of ground you did last week. Every time I turned on the TV, you were popping up in a different location.
I'm very cheap as well.
You enjoyed it, though, I'm sure. I think everybody enjoyed it, didn't they?
It was superb.
I haven't really heard any negativity about this year's Royal Ascot. I mean, the racing was top class. It kind of sustained a high level all the way through. I was kind of... In a way, I was envious I wasn't there, but then with the temperatures the way they were, I'm not good in heat like that with all the gear on. So I was delighted to be able to watch you guys from home for, I think it was 2 or 3 days that I managed.
Well, when you consider that was the most challenging thing for everyone, especially the gentlemen of this occasion, having to wear the top hat and tails, or those who did wear top hat and tails, you kind of knew you were on a good thing. We were just chatting a few minutes ago before we started this show, saying, you know, the number of social media posts from people who are clearly posting just off their own back and they're not being forced to or being asked to by Ascot or any officials. Looks to me like this meeting is just taking off and going to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, it always comes back to the Cheltenham Festival, doesn't it? And all the negatives that came out of that, the ticket prices, the facilities, and Ascot just do it so well. I mean, it was, what, £99 for a normal ticket to get into Ascot. So they're not cheap, but Ascot just do everything so right. I know they're obviously lucky with the weather each year because it's always glorious, but the racing was fantastic. You only had 2 races with less than 8 runners, very limited odds-on favourites, and just a wide range of winning owners, winning trainers and winning jockeys. I thought the facilities at Ascot, the people that greeted you as you come in, the access to free water around the racetrack, and just the simple things of just having lots of seating around the place. They just do the basics very, very well, and I thought it was a fantastic meeting.
I think that's summing it up quite nicely. Everything they did at Ascot done so well. And also having royal patronage. I mean, that is so important. And I know people might look cynically at that in some quarters, but it is key to keeping this meeting as attractive as it is on an international level, which obviously keeps it so competitive on the course.
It's obviously a huge part of it, Rishi. From an Irish perspective, we had the heightened interest this year, obviously with Willie Mullins having a horse for the King and Queen running on the first day, reaching high. Now,
should have won.
There was no happy ending to that particular story I was on. I'm sure one or two of people watching were as well. Look, it was just one of those things, wasn't it? It was a bit of a car crash to watch, but there'll be other days for him. Sure. But yeah, as I say, I think the whole week was just a triumph, really.
Okay, well, let's get stuck into what we saw from Royal Ascot 2025 in Racing Recap. And let's kick off with the Queen Anne Stakes. Painful to watch for me as my dear friend Rosalian just didn't quite get home. But Docklands, what a horse he's been for connections. You know, he's Harry Eustace's first Royal Ascot winner when he won the Britannia, and then does the business under Mark Zara. Yeah,
and a messy sort of race, Rishi, but I think full credit to Docklands. He was kind of slow to get going, made his move at the opportune time, as it turned out. I don't think Rosalian has done an awful lot wrong, has he? And the two of them have pulled nicely clear of the rest. I think Rosalian maybe hasn't quite got back to his very best from last year yet. I'm not sure whether the figures would back that up or not. That's just my gut feeling. But I would actually mark up the winner for his performance. I know he loves the track, but I think just the way the race was run, it was a tremendous effort from him. Kicked off obviously a brilliant week for his yard as well.
Yeah, absolutely stunning for Harry Eustace. What did you make of the Queen Anne?
I thought it was a bit of a messy race. It was a crawl and sprint, wasn't it? Finishing speed percentage of 110%, which says it all really. And that just worked against Rosalian. He was slightly too keen in the early stages, was away from where the pace was. And then you had the two in front fall back into his lap. And yeah, I think you could run it again and Rosalian would probably win. Docklands is just fantastic, isn't it? For a horse that's only 4 from 17 in his career, the fact that he's got 2 Royal Ascot victories under his belt in those conditions. Says it all, really. I was a bit disappointed to see Sardinian Warrior not run, so it was left to the other Ascot specialist, because that straight track at Ascot is a specialist course and distance, I think, looking forward. So you just need to bear that in mind. Handicap has risen, raised Docklands £4 to 118 for winning a Queen Anne. That probably says it all, that the race, you could run it again, and say Notable Speech was slightly unlucky in the run. It sets it up nicely for a Sussex Stakes, doesn't it? It
does. Rosalien is 9-2 with Bet365 for the Sussex Stakes. The winner, Docklands, is 16-1, and then obviously Steve mentioned the likes of Sardinian Warrior, who didn't make it. He's 25-1. The favourite for the Sussex Stakes is Field of Gold. So let's talk about the St James's Palace Stakes, and then we can talk about the Sussex afterwards. But Field of Gold, I think, has put to bed any questions about who the king of at least the 3-year-old milers certainly is anywhere in the world, I'd say, on turf.
Oh, he's going to be the poster boy for the whole season, isn't he? The fact that he's grey as well shows a wicked turn of foot. He's so much like Kingman, isn't he? I know John Gosden made the comparison after the Irish Guineas win, but he just is. If you played them side by side, both of their St James's Palace wins, it's just that wicked turn of foot. This was a race that was really interesting to watch tactically as well. The fact that First Wave missed the break, the Coolmore pacemaker, Colin Keane had to make a decision on whether he was going to go out and ride a very confident race like he did over in Ireland, but he decided to come inside and round in the bend. He had so much horse under him that, no, I'm getting out of that gap, thank you. Yeah. And as soon as he then asked him to quicken, my God, did he quicken? Really impressive performance. It's a shame, Race IQ is the one race of Royal Ascot that they haven't got the data for, because I'd have really liked to see the data that came with it. Yeah. People are saying that he should step up to 10 furlongs. I think he's a miler. Naturally, you're going to think that he's going to head to the Juddmonte International with the sponsorship later on in the year, but I cannot wait to see him in the Sussex Stakes.
I think there was a school of thought, obviously, as we all know, before the race, that stepping up in trip would really suit him, the way he finished the Guineas at Newmarket, the way he finished the Guineas in Ireland. But the performance at Ascot suggested, and even John Gosden's reaction afterwards, felt that there's a feeling that he might just be kept to a mile because he was so brilliant and he showed such speed.
It's starting to look more and more like that, isn't it? I don't think you'd have any problem with the 10 furlongs myself, but if you're that good at a mile, is there any need? And we're going to talk about another horse in the same yard in a little while that might have a little bearing on the situation as well. I mean, on paper, he obviously had a lot more on his plate than he did in the Irish Guineas with Henri Matisse and Rulincourt in there. But I must admit, to watch the race, it was every bit as straightforward as the Irish Guineas. Never looked like getting beat. As Steve said, Colin Keane could have taken the safe route, gone around the outside. He came inside a horse and still ended up getting to the front in plenty of time, a little bit earlier than John Gosden would have liked by the sound of things. But look, he was never getting beaten. Without a doubt, he's the top dog amongst the 3-year-olds, and it's going to take a very good older horse to beat him, I think, as well.
Well, he is even money favourite for the Sussex Stakes. Rosalien, as we said, 9-2. Henri Matisse, 8-1. Lake Victoria, 10s. Notable Speech, 10s. Choosing Line and Winters, 12s for the Sussex Stakes. Just a word about Rulincourt and Henri Matisse. I mean, Rulincourt, I don't think he was anywhere near his best in the race. He just never looked to travel as well.
He was off the bridle after a furlong, wasn't he? Like, that Derby prey, even though he didn't run at Epsom, I think just the whole way that they've trained him to try and settle him over a mile and a half, it was just all too much. A couple of weeks only after that. Henri Matisse probably could have got closer. It was a bit of a messy race in behind, tried to track through Field of Gold and kind of got lent on in the straight. So I wouldn't give up on him going forward, but do I think he'll reverse form with Field of Gold? Absolutely not.
No, I think I heard Ryan Moore say he thought Henri Matisse would have won maybe 6 out of 10 St James's Palaces with the performance he put in, and he was still brushed aside by the winner, even if he would have got a little bit closer, maybe with a better run. So that just gives you an idea of the calibre of horse we're dealing with here with the winner.
Okay, so in the Sussex Stakes, not quite the same level, but Field of Gold against Rosalien, a little bit of Frankel against Camford Cliffs or whatever. It's nice to have an outstanding 3-year-old and an outstanding, I still think, 4-year-old in Rosalien. So how do you see the Sussex?
It's got to be Field of Gold. But as I mentioned earlier on, Rishi, I think Rosalien could have a little bit more to give. Maybe with another run behind him now. Field of Gold has obviously had a few more, raced a bit more than him this season. Maybe Rosalien can raise his level, but I think he's going to have to. You'd have to be with Field of Gold at the moment.
Okay, what do you think?
It'll be fascinating whether, I'm assuming Juddmonte will run Windlord as a pacemaker once again.
That's the key, I think.
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting to see who has the better turn of foot. It's going back to Kingman and Tornado and what you do. Do you crawl and sprint in order to try and... The only time that Field of Gold really looked as in trouble is in the 2000 Guineas, where he's going into the dip, going downhill on fast ground. So whether they try and do that, but the presence of Windlord in the race will make sure that that doesn't happen. I just don't see how he gets beaten.
Yeah, I do think that if Windlord does his bullet train role, then it will certainly suit Rosalien, because he's been messed about. Well, you said it was messed about at Ascot without that pace. So the Sussex Stakes, that will be something to look forward to later on in the season. Let's move on and talk about the fillies race over a mile, the main feature for the fillies over a mile, and that was Cesene. The story of Cesene wasn't just simply the fact that she beat Zaragana, and Zaragana didn't look the most straightforward. It was the people. It was about the people. It was Gary Carroll, Joe Murphy. Tell me about that.
Yeah, brilliant, Rishi. I think everybody back home was thrilled by this. I mean, Joe Murphy is one of the nicest guys you'd meet, not just in racing, any walk of life. Proper gentleman. He's been training horses for 50 years. He's a pleasure for us to deal with in the media as well, which I suppose always helps. And, you know, the yard, I think, has been steadily moving on an upward trajectory in the last few years. It's very, obviously, heavily focused on the flat these days. They might have the odd runner over jumps. And this filly, she had run very well in the Irish 1000. I actually spoke to Joe that day. He had a winner later on in the card, and both he and Gary Carroll felt that maybe just the way the race panned out, she was better than the bare form. They rolled the dice and it worked out spectacularly. I mean, great ride from Gary, kept it simple. And I think fascinating that they're talking about chucking her into the Irish Oaks now. I suppose they've got a chance to win a classic with the filly. That's going to be the last roll of the dice as far as that's concerned. Couldn't see her running in a St Ledger anyway, so why not have a go at it if she's fitting in form? She's by Australia, and she certainly wasn't stopping at the finish over a mile. Another extra half a mile obviously is going to demand an awful lot more, but I think that's a really sporting move as well.
Yeah. I love this quote afterwards when he said that if she was a hand shorter than she was, somebody else would have bought her, she wouldn't be his. Painful watching for you, watching Zaragana, Steve?
Yeah, because I'd also backed January. So watching a furlong out, I thought, oh, okay, which one of the two of you is going to win? I'd upgrade the winner, if I'm honest. If you watch the race back, both Zaragana and January come back from quite far back, and the likes of Falakea that also forced the pace. I know she was too keen in the early stages, but they dropped out of it. And to see, like, just stayed on, like, real gutsy at the finish.
Looks like she needed a mile and a half.
Well, on breeding, I know she's by Australia, but there's not a huge amount of stamina on the dam side. But given how gutsy she is, you wouldn't back against her just sticking her neck out towards the finish. But Zaragana's got a lot of bad press for getting beat in this. I wonder if it's ground related. She changed her legs, the head went up. She's a tricky filly to ride for Mikel Barcelona. But yeah, probably one that you'd want to back in Surabet or in the I can't remember what Bet365 call the market, but where you've then got your win and you can get your money back if second. Probably one of those to back going forward along with Calandagan.
Yeah. Oh dear. Okay, that was the Coronation Stakes. Another candidate for Performance of the Week came in the Prince of Wales Stakes. Ombudsman produced a remarkable turn of foot in the circumstances to beat Anmart. How impressed were you by what he did off that pace?
Not as impressed as the handicapper, plus £11, 128 this morning, which is a mad rating for me. For coming out of a race that obviously they went too hard in. Ombudsman was given a good ride by William Buick pace-wise, finishing speed percentage of 102%, which actually is really good given you think how quick they went early on in that. The horse got William Buick out of a bit of trouble, but actually probably finding that trouble also aided the horse that he didn't go too soon. Stepped forward massively from that run in the Brigadier Gerard Stakes. I thought Anmart ran really well on ground that was probably fast enough for him, but I know he's now shortened significantly for the Eclipse, but I just had my slight reservations around. I think everything went perfectly for Ombudsman in this, and I'd probably look to oppose him next time because given that new rating, he's going to be the one that everyone wants to back at the top of the market, and I'll probably be playing something each way against him in the Eclipse.
All right, let's deal with the Prince of Wales Stakes before we get your thoughts on the Eclipse and how impressed were you by Ombudsman. And what did you make of Los Angeles? Just simply a case of too hard and those...
It was too hard. I mean, the figures tell you that, and I think the Ballydoyle camp have said as much, Rishi, but was it only that? I wonder the fact that he's going to miss a fair bit of time now. Did he return with some little issue? I don't know. I'm just not 100% sure that it was entirely down to the gallop they went. Anyway, look, I would take a much more positive view of the winner than Steve maybe is inclined to. Maybe not as positive as the handicapper. I hadn't realised he'd gone up to a figure quite as high as that. But the race was set up for him, yes. But to my mind, I would actually say, had he got into the clear earlier, I thought he did really well to pull back the winner. He was having to be taken back. He was going so well, having to be taken back almost off horses twice in the straight. And to me, he had no right to pick Ahmad up after having to make up that ground, almost from not quite a standing start, but Ahmad had the revs up at that stage. So I thought it was a superb performance. I was a little bit wishy-washy about him after the Brigadier Gerard. The winner, obviously, of that race is a very good horse as well. Looking forward to seeing what he can do next time. But I really think Ombudsman on the back of that is the horse that they all have to aim at now in the mile and 2 division. I'd be loath to go against him. And I don't know whether he's a definite runner in the Eclipse, but the quotes I heard for the Eclipse after the race, they weren't crazy short or anything like that. Maybe that does build in a slight doubt about whether he'll run. Ruling court, I guess, could be in the mix for the owners as well. So, but I really am fascinated to see what he can do. He's so lightly racing. He's only run 6 times. Only made his debut around this time last year. I really think the sky could be the limit for him.
I think the sky could be the limit. I think 128 is pretty high off that rating, but he's only had 6 runs. I thought the run in the, obviously a rare selection that won, but I thought he would go well, because I think that the Brigadier Gerard is a race that will work out well. I mean, we said that before. Al Makam, when he gets his ground, he's a very good horse, and Ombudsman gave him weight, and having not had a start going into the Brigadier Gerard, I thought he ran really well.
Al Makam's also a real Sandown specialist as well.
Absolutely.
So
if they get rain, I mean, he's 10 to 1.
Yeah.
I mean, not that we're probably going to get enough rain, but Ombudsman 7 to 4 with Bet365 for the Eclipse right now. Sosi 7 to 2, Camille Presaro 9 to 2, Delacroix 7s, Al Makam 10s, Anmark 12s, Calandagan 12s, Economics is 14s, Ruling Court 16. So who turns up will be interesting, but for the Eclipse at those prices, you like Delacroix? Is that right?
I did. I made a case. I had to do an anti-post piece today for the Eclipse, and I've just seen his odd tumble since Aidan O'Brien's pretty much confirmed him for the race. But if you look back, I think 3 of the last 4 years, Aidan O'Brien's won it, St Mark's Basilica, and then the last 2 years. But actually, the year that he didn't win it, he didn't even have a runner. So, I thought Delacroix, forgive him his Epsom run, and was a big price at double figures, but he's just getting shorter and shorter by the minute.
What would you play now then? Ombudsman 7 to 4 favourite.
That obviously is shorter than he was put in straight after the race, Rishi.
Yeah,
but
that's because everyone's seen 128.
Yeah. And maybe there is perhaps a feeling that he is a likely runner now. I don't know, after the dust has settled, perhaps. He's still the one I'd want to be with. Delacroix, I think you can definitely put a line through the Derby run, but I still just have it in my mind that he's maybe looked a bit better than he was in the trial at Leopardstown, was able to basically get his own way up top that day. So it would definitely be Ombudsman for me at this stage.
When John Gosden was faced with the question, would Ombudsman run against Field of Gold, in a brilliant interview, he did say, not if I can help it. And then as the camera and the interviewer walking away, he said, the answer to that is no. So I'd love to see them against each other at some point. What a race that would be. They both lined up for the Juddmonte International. That would be something else. Just on the theme of the older horses, we'll just talk briefly about the Hardwicke Stakes, because it's fair to say when it came to emotional equine performances, not many stirred those emotions better than Rebels Romance did in the Hardwicke. And Desperation Stakes for Charlie Appleby, the last runner of the week.
Hard to believe. I know he's had tough Royal Ascots in the past as well, but Rebels Romance just seems to be a horse you can always rely on to pull you out of a tight spot. Incredible record that he has. Again, a little bit like Ombudsman after the previous run, I wasn't necessarily sure whether he was going to deliver. Then again, I suppose it's a Group 2. This is a proper Group 1 horse based on everything we know of him. I know the runner-up is a Group 1 winner, but it was a softer Group 1 abroad that he won. He's more like a genuine Group 2 horse, Alrifa, I think. And Rebels Romance, he's just, what is there not to like about him, Rishi? He's just an incredible horse. Is it 10 million he's won now?
11.
11, sorry.
10.8,
Selling him short.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's incredible. great to follow him, goes everywhere. Don't see too much of him, obviously, on these shores. And he just shows you can do it at home as well as away.
Yeah, and it's amazing to think that he was being campaigned as a dirt horse. He was sent over to the States for the Belmont, and he was being thought of as a Dubai World Cup horse. But he's turned his career, and he had that unseated Ryder in the States where I think he then lost his form a little bit before getting it back on the all-weather. Just the most remarkable story. He's
like a national hunt horse, isn't he? Like, you just learn to love them. Like 7 Group and Grade 1 wins, and now a Royal Ascot winner. And like you said, Charlie Appleby can just depend on him. Yeah. William Buick, I think, described him as his best friend afterwards. Yeah. Like, he is that horse that you can rely on. It's a slight shame that he's a gelding because all of his attributes would be perfect for breeding.
That's another talking point about breeding, staying, dependable, durable, strong conformation, can stand there racing. But go for the.
It's going to be interesting to see if they go for the King George. The King George could be an interesting race this year.
He is 6-1 with Bet365 for the King George the 6th and Queen Elizabeth Stakes. Jan Bruegel's 3-1 joint favourite along with Kalpana. Calandagan 6-1, Rebels Romance 6s, Goliath 7s, Lambourne the Derby winner 10s. I don't think Ombudsman's going to go up to a mile and a half at any point soon. What would you?
Well, I looked at it last year and I was slightly disappointed in the fact that he only finished 3rd in the King George. But then if you look back, Goliath has looked brilliant since. Blue Stocking was in 2nd, who obviously went on to win the Arcs. Actually, in hindsight, it was actually quite a good run to finish 3rd. And is it going to be a stronger renewal this year? Who knows?
Just to mention on Ghost Rider, it was obviously the big money transfer on the eve of the meeting at the Goffs London sale. I thought he ran really well in his first go up to mile and a half. And do you know what? I think he might be worth a go at a mile and 6.
Yeah,
he stuck to his task well. I know he's an invincible spirit, but out of a Champs-Élysées mare, I wouldn't be surprised maybe if they look to go up again and triple him.
Yeah, and the way the race was run, I mean, William Buick was always in the perfect position on Rebels Romance, and he kicked off the bend. But you're right, Ghost Rider did stick on quite well. That was quite noticeable. At least there was something back for the $2 million that Amo spent on him from the Goffs London sale. Okay, again, sticking to the older horse theme, and the Gold Cup went the way of Trawlerman, beating Illinois by a widening 7 lengths. What was your take on the overall performance of Trawlerman in the sense that simply the best horse in those circumstances, 2.5 miles?
Best horse, best ride, best team tactics. I thought Sweet William did a good old job on Illinois, to be honest. I was really keen on Illinois. I thought the step up in trip would suit him. I thought he'd give himself every chance. Changed his legs a few times. I'm not sure he was in love with the ground, if I'm being honest. I wouldn't give up on him as a stayer, but like it's been said afterwards, he was substituted in for Kyprios, and I think you do need to train the whole season in order to try and get to a Gold Cup, as opposed to coming from an Ormond Stakes, for example, like he has this year. So I wouldn't give up on Illinois as a stayer going forward. But yeah, I just thought Trawlerman ran up to the level like he normally did behind Kyprios. I thought Illinois would... I mean, he'd arguably achieved more than what Kyprios had before he started on this campaign, and I thought he would be the horse in this division for the next 3 years. But as it was, Trawlerman just need to run up to Trawlerman's levels. And, I mean, granted, the handicap's put him up £3 to 121, so he thought that he's progressed. But to be honest, I just thought he ran to his own level.
What did you make of the Sweet William... Because the Gold Cup last year, he was held up at the back. Generally, he's held up and brought through his races. He's ridden much more positively.
Yes, and I heard the owner being interviewed just before the race, and she kind of indicated that might be the case as well. And I think Steve hit the nail on the head. It was like just a perfect storm for Trawlerman, wasn't it? Yeah. The plan was obviously to draw his 2 main rivals into the red zone early, knowing that he gets the 2.5 miles really well. That was the question mark for Illinois and for the French horse, and it just worked a treat, didn't it? It was all over turning in. I wouldn't give up on Illinois either, though. He's a horse I've had a soft spot for all the way since his 2-year-old days. The preparation, obviously the way the race set up, probably suited Trawlerman a bit more as well, and the conditioning angle. I think when you put those into the mix, it's a decent start for him maybe in Cup company, and I think maybe this time next year he could be a real potent force. We know Coolmore love to have Gold Cup horses, and I don't know whether a horse like Jan Bruegel wouldn't go down that route. I wouldn't have thought so. Unless something else maybe sticks its hand up, he could be the one maybe to be back in 12 months' time.
Again, I had the pleasure of speaking to Aidan after the race to ask him what we thought of Illinois. and he said when you prepare a horse to run in the Coronation Cup, and then the plans change, and you then have to train it slightly differently that you planned to for the Gold Cup, you don't have enough time, etc. He said he'd love to, and actually before he said that, he looked at me and he went, "Do you understand what I'm saying?" Because I think he just saw the puzzled look on my face. But then he said, "I'd love to have an opportunity to prep him now for the Goodwood Cup without having to change any plans. I'd love to have another go at the winner again, not taking anything away from what he did." So he seems to be of the mindset that when trained specifically as a stayer, Illinois has got more to give. So.
There was an interesting interview afterwards. John Gosden said, he's going to be lightly raced from now. I'm not sure you'll see him until the Henry II next year. He kind of went, right, okay. So if they're now going to campaign him sparingly to try and get back to the Gold Cup, the likes of the Goodwood Cup and the Irish St Ledger and all races like that are there for him, aren't they?
Looks like the Gosdens have another nice stayer coming through anyway, the French Master as well.
Yeah, absolutely. What a performance that was. We'll get to that in a bit. Let's talk about the sprinters and the very first day. American Affair produced an outstanding performance. I mean, it was only last month we were talking about him winning a nice handicap at York, and he's won a Group 1. Yeah,
just look at the rise in his handicap rating as he's come up through the ranks. I mean, it's fantastic. You can make that leap, obviously. It's easier, it's well documented for sprinters maybe to leap from handicap company right the way to the top of the tree. But what a progressive horse. Excuses for his defeat last time. Big punt on the day as well. Unfortunately, I wasn't part of it. I don't tend to pay as close attention maybe to the sprints at Royal Ascot as I do to perhaps the races over longer trips, but hard not to like what he did. And now that he's got to the top, no reason, I don't think why he shouldn't hang around there for a while.
Yeah. Exciting plans for him as well. Obviously, the Nunthorpes mentioned. And then Jim Goldie at the Breeders' Cup would be quite exciting. I look forward to seeing what the Americans make of Jim Goldie.
Yeah, his first Group 1 as a trainer, wasn't it? But his sprinters, like the way that he trains, they just progress with age, don't they? Hawkeye the New and Jack Dexter have both done this. But like Gary says, I think he started 2 seasons ago off 70, this season off 94. Handicap has just put him up 9 to 114. But the fact that the winner and the second were both rated 105 and 104 pre-race coming into this probably says it all around the 5 furlong division. Yeah. And when we get on to the next race, the 6 furlong division, the fact that it was dominated by foreign raiders probably says it all around our sprinters.
Yeah, there was a lot to like about the result of the race with American Affair. I thought Frost of Dawn, she's a lovely horse, and I thought she's run an absolute cracker. Kevin Blake sent me a snapshot of the dam side of the page of American Affair. There isn't one black type performer on that dam side.
Brilliant,
nothing,
isn't it?
Absolutely nothing. Which actually is inspirational. Why not? You can do it, even if everything in black and white, or not black in this case, says that you can't. The Queen Elizabeth II Jubilee Stakes went the way of France, as you heard from, and Jerome Renier came out with the story of the week in terms of connections by saying that Flavien Prat gave Factor Cheval the worst ride he's ever seen given to any of his horses. And then, of course, he was full of praise for James Doyle before he then flagged his sheet at the horse and chucked James Doyle off. So what a week for Jerome Renier. Brutally, Saturno Rev got beaten. I still think he emerges as the best horse. I think if he was on that side, closer to Lazat, he would have won. But am I being too positive about it?
It is fine margins, isn't it, Rishi? It's only half a length. They were the dominant horses in the race from a long way out, weren't they? Yeah. And perhaps on another day, if they were drawn close together, or perhaps even on that day, had they been drawn the other way around, who knows? There was a lot of talk about draw biases during the week, but when you go back through it, there were winners from everywhere on the straight track, weren't there? I was impressed by Lazat. Now, he's not a horse I've seen run too much before, but I like the way he went about it. He kind of put the foot on the gas early, kept the foot on the throat of the others, and never really looked like relinquishing it, to be honest.
Yeah, it was a terrific performance because he went, as Gary says, he went pretty hard early on, and he just kept that gallop up.
Yeah, you can just maintain that pace, can't he? I think he's ran over a mile previously, but yeah, the fact that he could keep that up over 6 furlongs from a horse that you absolutely loved, I did feel for you watching it. But the one that took my eye in behind was Inisherin. I think now he's a 7 furlong horse. He had the longest stride length in the whole field. And the way that he's shaped, I think he got away with it in a poor 6 furlong division, winning the Commonwealth Cup and things like that. I think the City of York is made for him. Now it's Group 1, obviously trained by Kevin Ryan. I'd really be interested in him in the City of York going forward.
All right. Just briefly mention the July Cup.
I don't think the 1-2, neither of them are going to go for it.
Lazat nor Saturno Rev, but Flora of Bermuda, who ran a fine race. Once again, she's a very good sprinting filly. She's 4-1, joint favourite along with Symbol of Honour for the July Cup. Inner Sharon's 8-1. This is all with Bet365. Kinross 8-1, Kind of Blue 9s. Arizona Blaze, who ran a terrific race, by the way, in the Commonwealth Cup. He's 14-1. Babouche 16s and Night Raider 16s. So keep those prices in mind when we talk about the Commonwealth Cup, because Time for Sandals beat Arizona Blaze. Rayevka was back in third. All three big prices, but a shout out to Andy Holding, who gave Time for Sandals a very strong positive mention in our preview. And she was, there was no fluke about the performance. Good to see Arizona Blaze bounce back after a disappointing run last time. But what did you make of the overall strength of this year's Commonwealth Cup?
No, I thought it was poor, if I'm honest. Shadow of Light is the horse that we were all hoping would run to that Guineas form and prove himself back as a sprinter. But I just thought it was a poor race. This is under threat, isn't it? This Group 1 status.
Yeah.
Time for Sandals is up £6 to 111 for winning this. They're going to hope that they obviously kick on for the remainder of the season. Yeah. But third in the Fred Darling, second in a Group 3 at Shanty. It's not.
The race was heavily relying on Shadow of Light and Jonquil.
Yeah, Jonquil was the other one. Yeah, I thought he'd run much better than he did. Yeah, he was beaten a long way out, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I think you could probably upgrade the winner because she did it her own on the other side of the track, away from the others.
I thought if there was one to take out of it, I thought Rayevka did well from coming from further back in the field. She maybe might be one to keep on side for a nice sprint as the season goes on, but I think, as Steve said, overall it was one of the few races actually during the week that just left me a little bit cold watching it, to be honest.
Yeah, Shadow of Light was the horse that obviously a lot of people thought would win, but Connections blamed the ground for that performance. So I wouldn't give up on him because he actually travelled really nicely, and then when asked to quicken, he didn't really go anywhere. Seemed reluctant to put it all in on that sort of ground.
Whistle Jacket took my eye in behind as well. I started looking into stride lengths now that you get all of this data, and he had the longest stride length in the field at 7.61 metres.
Yeah.
Got blocked a few times and then stayed on well towards the end. I think now it's probably worth stepping up in trip, seeing because he hasn't been campaigned over further than 6 furlongs yet. And just the way that he ran, I just thought, actually, you might be worth a go over 7 furlongs next time.
There's no quote for Shadow of Light in the July Cup. Or am I not seeing? No, nothing there. But I wouldn't give up on him over 6 furlongs. He definitely has a lot of speed, as we know. Okay, let's then sort of recap on other performances. Amongst the 2-year-olds, Stad, Charles Darwin, True Love, Havana Hurricane, Venetian Sun and Humidity, all winners. Anything that really stood out amongst those 2-year-old races for you?
Charles Darwin, I thought was magnificent. Fastest to 20 mile an hour, impressive winner. Looked as if the closers would get to him and then just stretched away under Ryan Moore. I was really impressed. I was impressed with Stad as well. The fact that he did it himself in the middle of the track on a day where the other side appeared to be benefiting. But the one out of the 2-year-olds for me was Humidity. I really, really liked his win in the Chesham Stakes. Really well judged ride by James Dorr from the front. Exactly 100% finishing speed percentage. Longest stride in the field. I thought he could be a Derby horse for next year. I was impressed with him. He's around 25 for the Derby.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. He also ears pricked, hitting the line. Yeah. He had seemingly more in the tank. What about the 2-year-olds for you, Gary?
Humidity was the one I was going to highlight as well. I loved his performance. To me, he almost had to win 2 races. He had to fight off Moment of Joy, and then when the second challenger came, Secret Adversary, a horse who'd run second to a very exciting Ballydoyle colt first time at Italy at Leopardstown. I thought he might be vulnerable, but he was actually going away from him at the finish again. To me, as Steve said, I know Connections spoke about maybe he's got plenty of speed and he could be a Guineas horse, but to me next year maybe over a mile 2 plus he could be a proper one. Okay. I know, and obviously Charles Darwin was brilliant, but everybody said it. Albert Einstein was the name that kept cropping up all week, even though he wasn't at Ascot. And the 2 horses he beat at the Curragh both ran well in the Coventry and Dabin Power Blue, weren't beaten too far by Gestad. So you can see maybe even from their performances that it's not just all talk.
I did the wise guy double in the run-up to Royal Ascot. So I had Albert Einstein at 3s and Charles Darwin at 8s for the Norfolk. So watching both of those performances, I kind of stood there going,
Close.
And then Aidan O'Brien then did the interview of saying, Einstein's on the next level. I was like, don't say this to me.
I liked Venetian Sun winning the Albany and the reaction to Connection saying, she's beating horses rated 110 in work at home, and then Carl Burke said he then worked her with something else just to double check that wasn't, who was also rated 110 or 108 or something, and she did the same thing. So she's very exciting. And I like the performance of Havana Hurricane when it comes to Maximised, because I thought Maximised brushed him off quite nicely. But Charlie Appleby after the Epsom performance he was basically saying, yes, he's a good horse, but we've got better. But I would hope that they start treating him like a top-class horse, because I thought he was very good, and Havana Hurricane franking the form like he did at Royal Ascot will hopefully be interesting to see where he goes next, Maximised. Among some of the other performances, I thought let's go through some of the other horses. The 3-year-olds, some of the older horses in the staying races. Gary, where would you like to pinpoint?
Yeah, I'd pick out a few, Rishi. Crimson Advocate was one who really impressed me, winning the Duke of Cambridge Stakes. Very interesting profile, obviously, American background, sprint distances, but saw out a race really well. And at first kind of thought I had maybe for a future target, maybe something like a Breeders' Cup further down the line, maybe for her. Could be interesting. Garden of Eden, who won the Ribblesdale, just seems to have taken off lately. I mean,
it's a typical old Aidan O'Brien thing, isn't it?
She looks tier 2 at best down there, I thought, until she won at Nace, and even after that I had my doubts. I suppose when you saw Ryan Moore jocked up on her at Ascot, then you're thinking maybe she's risen up the pecking order a bit, but she was a resounding winner. I mean, she really bossed that Ribblesdale Stakes, so one to keep on side going forward as well. Trinity College was good. The King Edward, I think, will work out really well. 2 smashing horses, first and second. Wrong way around from my perspective, 100%. But I think Zaran was beaten on merit. I was a little bit disappointed, to be honest, that he came off the bridle so early. For a horse that was able to come from last to first over at Leopardstown previously in a race that wasn't really one to suit.
I think the ground did.
That could well have been it. But I think the winner might have been in the same boat.
Yeah.
And Connection, the winner, I think felt the ground was a little bit lively for him as well. So, as I say, 2 serious horses there. The winner could well be a Ledger horse, but he's not sure to pace either. I think he was just able to make his move at the right time to put Zaran away. I mean, Zaran stuck to his task really well.
He's a gelding, isn't he, Amelot?
Of course.
I think the King George has been mentioned.
That's what it was, yeah.
So that would be quite interesting were he to line up. But I'm with you on Zaran. I'm not giving up on him.
I think they're 2 really good horses, And then the other one who I thought was a revelation was Noble Champion.
Wow.
I mean, if you didn't know what price he was, you would have thought, watching this, this is the odds-on favourite, because every step of the way he was the winner of that Jersey Stakes, and he was able to even give away a bit of ground running around the track. And just to hear the way Ed Walker was talking about him afterwards, and I think that I hear he told a few people to have a few quid on him at a nice price on the day.
It was in the Royal Carriage, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's who it was. There's obviously been a lot of faith in him all along, but I suppose that's the first time he'd really done on the track what, by all accounts, they'd been seeing at home. But the way he won that, there's going to be some big days ahead for him.
Yeah, I'm sure about that. I mean, because they've done well with him, getting him back to this level. A few people doubted the fact that he'd gone slightly off the boil. But
they couldn't really work out the trip, could they? 6 furlongs, a mile, and you look at this and it just looks as if he's just progressed.
Okay, Steve, the floor's open to you for your...
Yeah, we mentioned horses for the Ledger. I was impressed with Karma, so put him up for the Queen's Vase. Just doesn't do anything flashy. You can see exactly why he's been fitted in blinkers for his 3 wins so far. 14 to 1 for the St Ledger. I thought that was a big price. If I knew that he was actually being targeted at it, I thought it'd be half that price.
That is the plan, though, isn't it?
I mean, I think so.
Paddy Toomey said that after the race, and they've confirmed it.
I thought that was a big price. All the way through that race, you watch some races and you go, this is just going to win from here. And I thought he was really impressive in the Queen's Vase, and obviously Queen Vase has been quite a good pointer towards the St Ledger in years previously. If you look at a few of the handicaps, I thought we had group horses masquerading as handicappers in there with a couple of the winners. French Master got me out of trouble on day 1. Finishing speed percentage of 106%, top speed of 38 miles an hour. I thought he was the best in the field by a long way. Wouldn't have been suited by being so far back in that field. You can see why they're talking about the Goodwood Cup next for him. I thought he would be a proper stayer going forward. My Cloud in the Royal Hunt Cup, highest top speed, highest finishing speed percentage. Interesting to see. I haven't actually checked this morning what they've done with his handicap mark, but he's definitely a group performer going forward. It wouldn't surprise you if next season he's lining up in the Queen Anne in the opener on day one rather than in a Royal Hunt Cup.
His half-brother won the race, Palace Pier.
Yeah, and they're typed to progressive age as well. Palace Pier obviously then did okay going forward from there. I thought Merchant was good in the King George V Stakes as well. Again, another horse that should be up to group level going forward out of handicaps. And then just a shout for Get It in the Wokingham. Just so fast early on in the race. More Thunder, a lot of people would be drawn into that. I actually thought they might go for the Bunbury Cup because he wouldn't have had his revised mark from that, but apparently they're going to look at group class for him. I thought he'd have a massive chance up to 7 furlongs, had Newmarket form, but apparently not. Apparently they're going to head into group level for him, and you can see why. And it was the same sort of thing for Never So Brave as well. I thought connections of them would actually get a double in those, but
he's a proper horse, Never So Brave, isn't he? He's just got push button acceleration. Like,
broke my heart at Chester.
yeah, that was a tough one, all right. But it was a one-sided affair. Like, I mean, a full field handicap on the straight course at Ascot, 7 furlongs.
Very impressive.
Yeah, I think he'll make his mark. I think he's definitely up to Group 2 level, and I wouldn't even rule out maybe going all the way.
And then actually just looking down this list that Steve compiled here and looking at all the races on the straight track, you've got Oisin Murphy winning on Misinformation, Oisin Murphy winning on Arabian Story, Never So Brave, Ardrestia. I mean, Oisin Murphy on the straight track, I mean...
He's taking Jamie Spencer's mantle, is he?
Yeah, it's a new king of the straight track at Ascot. So overall, we've talked about all these performances. If there was a riding performance, what about, talking about the jockeys? Would there be one that stood out, or would it be overall? You say maybe Ryan and Oisin or somebody else. I mean, Kieran Schumacher, I think, is another name that ought to be mentioned after the season he's had to have 2 winners there.
Purely on riding, I'd probably give it to James Doyle on Humidity. I just thought he set those fractions. It's very easy to go too quick on that straight track at Ascot, and for him to get an exact 100% finishing speed percentage for Humidity, I thought that was probably a really well-judged ride, as well as William Buick.
That was, Buick and Trawlerman was spot on,
I think tactically they're both very good rides. You could then point to James Doyle's ride on French Master, but I think that was probably just the fact that the horse was just so much better than the others.
Yeah. Anything to add to that, Gary?
Not really, Rishi, no. And I'm probably forgetting about some of the ones in the handicaps or whatever. There could have been 1 or 2 great rides that don't spring to mind. But I did think William Buick just got it absolutely spot on in the Gold Cup on Trawlerman.
And just a word about John and Thady Gosden and their team, because of course last year things were tough for them by their standards. They didn't do too bad by overall settings, but by their standards they were way below par. But this season, obviously you have to have the horses, but this season it seems to all be bubbling up, and the horses that ran last season that they've brought forward slowly, whether it's Ombudsman, even Field of Gold, they've all found a new level this season. What are we thinking about how the trainer's title is going to go this season? Do you think that Thady Gosden's going to put his name to a trainer's championship for the first time?
That will be interesting. It's not something I've considered, actually, to be honest. Still a long way to go, but there's such strength there in Clarehaven at the minute, isn't there? Yeah. I mean, Field of Gold, Ombudsman, how many more Group 1s are they going to win between them this year?
That's the thing, isn't it?
If they keep going on the kind of trajectory they're going at the moment, they might well have a big 2025 ahead.
Yeah, any thoughts?
Flat Trainers Championship, Bet365 betting, Aidan O'Brien 1-3.
Wow. Got John and Thady Gosden?
He's currently 7-1. Charlie Appleby 9-2.
7-1.
Apparently so.
Wow, I think that's quite. They're leading the championship at the moment after Ascot, and they've got.
Yeah, that looks a big price to me. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, there we go. We just unearthed an absolute belt.
Best bet.
Yeah, I was going to say best bet of the weekend. All 3 of us.
Thank you very much for joining us in this episode. Brilliant. Okay. Any other last words to sum up Royal Ascot 2025 before we close it off?
I'm looking forward to it the next year already.
Yeah. Absolutely,
Book those tickets.
Brilliant week.
Book those tickets. Royal Ascot continues to get better and better, and most importantly, the performances on the track merit all that praise. It's been a wonderful week of racing, and we have all enjoyed that edition of Racing Recap. Now, before we get into our weekend preview, just to let you know that our sponsor, Bet365, have a best odds guaranteed offer. It's available on every single UK and Irish race from 8 a.m. on the day of the race. If you take a price and the SP is bigger, Bet365 will pay you at the bigger odds. Full T's and C's can be found on the website. And so to our preview ahead of this weekend, and there's great racing in Ireland. Obviously, it's the Irish Derby. Great racing at Newcastle, the Northumberland Plate. And there's also some good supporting racing at York, etc. So let's kick off with the Northumberland Plate on Saturday at Newcastle on the all-weather. Who's Glen is a 6-1 favourite ahead of Papano. 2 Bossy for us, 7-1. Who's also 7-1 to Papano. East India Dock, 8s. 1 Smooth Operator, winner of the race last year, 8-1. Golden Rules, 10s. And it's 14-1 bar those. Gary, what's going to win the Northumberland Plate?
Nice easy one. I thought, looking at it, Rishi, I've seen stronger renewals. Willie Mullins obviously trimmed his team right down to 2 at the 5-day stage yesterday. I thought actually it was 2 runners. 2 Bossy for us might be the higher profile, but Papano has won a couple of times on the synthetic surfaces, so I thought maybe he might be the more interesting. I don't know whether both horses will run. They're in the same ownership. Maybe they're going to whittle it all the way down and just have the one contender. But I thought Papano was of some interest. The favourite is a likeable sort of horse, ran very well in the Chester Cup. The yard is flying, obviously, and has lots of good all-weather form as well. I think I'd be holding fire maybe till a little bit closer to the time if I was going to have a bet. But Papano, if he is the stable selector for Willie Mullins, might just be worth chancing maybe.
Okay, Papano, 7-1 Bet365 for the Northumberland Plate. Steve, I fear you and I are siding with the same horse in this race. I say fear, it could be positive. For some people might see it as a positive.
Definitely. Looking at the ones at the top of the market, I'll be against Who's Glen. 0 from 6 on the all-weather, and that includes a handicap off a mark of 77, is now rated 93. So I think vulnerable at the top of the market. I'd agree with Gary. I'd prefer Papano over 2 Bossy for us out of the Mullins pair. Previously trained by the Gosdens, 2 wins and a half a length third on his 3 all-weather runs. So at least has starts on the all-weather. Only had 1 start for Willie Mullins, but obviously that was in a Triumph hurdle. So and Nathaniel as well, so has that stay-in pedigree. So Papano out of the 2 Mullins ones. 1 Smooth Operator obviously gave Brian Ellison the win he always wanted in this race, but it's £12 higher this year, so we'll be up against it. And yeah, the one that really interests me is Golden Rules, having only his 10th start at the age of 8. An ex-Anthony Oppenheimer horse for the Gosdens, won on his stable debut for the Faulkners in March 2023 after 638 days off the track, was then a well-gambled 9-2 shot when beaten half a length in this race last year behind, in 2 years ago, behind Call in the Wind of a mark of 94. Off for another 637 days.
Perfect.
Finished an eye-catching 4th at Kempton. If you look at that, that was the 29th of March. That run and the break between then and now, I think is going to be spot on. If you go back and watch it, it was 7s out to 14s, travelled well into the contest and just got tired 2 furlongs out. I think that's going to put him spot on for this. If you look at it, 2 years ago, half a length second off a mark of 94, runs in it off 90 this year and is 10-1 with Bet365. I thought that was a brilliant bet.
Okay, I don't need to say any more because I agree entirely with what Steve said. You know, running well off a break for Golden Rules is nothing unusual, and clearly goes very well at Newcastle, 10-1. He's going to go into the all-time, the annual. I think it might go by the lucky 15. John and Daly Gosling to win the Trainers' Championship. Golden Rules to win the Northumberland Plate. Ombudsman to win the Judd. Yeah, who knows? Could be loads. I think this could be a good weekend. So that's a look at the Northumberland Plate. The only other horse I'd throw into the mix, if he does run, it's Manxman. I can't believe the run he produced last time at Ascot was his true running. But if he does turn up, I actually thought he would run okay at Ascot, and then he just, for whatever reason, didn't show his normal form. Normally he's much more consistent and reliable, and he's a really good stayer. And he's 20s, so I just keep him in mind. But I'm Golden Rules as well. We're sailing together on that ship. The Irish Derby also taking place this weekend at the Curragh. Gary, do you have an idea of who's going to line up for this race?
I have an idea, Rishi. I don't know how accurate it will be. I'm just keeping an eye on the confirmations here. There's 15 left in as things stand, but It's hard to imagine it's going to be a blockbusting edition. We're going to have Lambourne, obviously. We hopefully will have Tennessee Stud, who ran very well at Epsom, could well get a bit closer.
Is Lazy Griff going to go, do you think?
I haven't heard. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Green Impact, I think, is a definite runner. He'll be interesting stepping up in distance. Purview, to me, is a really interesting candidate if he's allowed to take his chance. Second to Delacroix on the trial at Leopardstown, but I thought did really well to get as close as he did to the winner that day, given how the race was run. He was kind of ridden to bring him forward, if you know what I mean, that day. Wasn't asked too many questions. He does have an alternative engagement this weekend. Whether they'll opt to keep his sights lower for now, I don't know. But if he pitched up, that would be potentially significant. And of course, I'd imagine Colin Keane will ride him for the first time now as well if he does run. Outside of that, Rishi, I don't know, did Aidan mention Puppet Master maybe might keep Lambourne company? I'd say it's probably going to be a smallish field. Might not be the best edition of the race, to be honest, but look, we'll still enjoy it, I'm sure.
Of course. You'll be there?
I'll be there, yeah.
What did you say was your season ticket?
Yes, very much. So they're all 3 days, yeah, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I think the forecast is okay.
Okay. What do you think? If those horses that we think... I mean, it's possible that we might have... obviously Lambourne, Lazy Griff, Tennessee Stud, Stanhope Gardens, they could all line up for the Irish Derby?
Yeah, Stanhope Gardens is probably the one open to most progression, given his prep for the Derby. Shaped, I thought, slightly like a non-stayer in the Derby, but this easier track, a better preparation going into it would give him a chance if he was to run. If you look at Aidan O'Brien's Epsom winners coming in to the Irish Derby, Galileo, High Chaparral, Camelot, Australia and Auguste Rodin all followed up in the Irish Derby. And then the ones that were beaten were Ruler of the World, Wings of Eagles and Anthony Van Dyke. I thought the fact that Lambourne is so uncomplicated and you can do what you like with him, if it is a small field and they jump out, they could easily make the running with him. He's not a horse that needs a pacemaker or something to hold his hand throughout races. He's versatile ground-wise, versatile track-wise, and we'll no doubt have Ryan Moore on board this time.
Yes, I'm with you. I think obviously Lambourne's the one to beat. Very straightforward, no real question marks against him. But I do think Stanhope Gardens, were he to run, he would be, I think, possibly Lambourne's biggest danger, because I do think the interrupted preparation he's had, where he started only really days before by running in that race at Salisbury, and then watching the Derby back at Epsom again. He's the horse that makes the biggest move out of the pack to go and challenge Lambourne, Lazy Griff and Tennessee Stud, and he gets to their coattails, and then he just runs out of stamina in the last half a furlong. But of course, the Epsom mile and a half is a stiffer mile and a half than the Curragh. Standard times tell you that. So I would give him a chance. His granddam actually won the Irish Oaks back in the day, Pure Grain, who was one of the favourites of mine, Sir Michael Stout.
Was it the Time Charter colours? The same?
The Barnet colours,
Beckett obviously had Westover, didn't he? Finished place in Epsom and then go on to win this.
So hopefully Stanhope Gardens were he to line up, but there's still a bit of uncertainty, as Gary pointed out. Now, the Pretty Polly Stakes, there are a few really interesting horses entered for that, and not entirely so. Gary, I'm going to put you to the test again. I presume Whirl's going to go for this.
It sounds like, Mini Hawk has been saved, I think, for the Irish Oaks couple of weeks' time, so it looks as though Whirl will be the big hope for Ballydoyle here. But as you mentioned, a lot of big names left in it as we go into the confirmation stage, which is today in about half an hour's time. But Tamfan is in there, Red Letter is in there. I wouldn't give up on her, even though she got beaten at a short price at Navan last time, kind of messy sort of race. Kalpana's in there as well. Yeah, I mean, that would really add a bit of spice, wouldn't it? Why didn't she run an Ascot in the end?
Ground.
Was it the ground? Yeah. It's good, I think, on the round track at the moment at the Curragh, and they are watering, which would suggest maybe...
I thought if she did run, it would be the perfect timing between now and the King George, for which she's joint favourite for that, isn't she? So where are we? There's more than enough time for her to run in these two, which work out quite nicely.
So if we even got 3 of those 4...
Strange?
Yeah, she's in it as well, I meant to say that, yeah. So... she was the 4th, actually. I only mentioned 3. Well done, Rish. Yeah, so if we managed to get 3 out of those 4, we'd have a super race.
And if we did, if we got all, who would you?
I suppose we're probably not going to get both Red Letter and Kalpana, will we? If they all pitched up, I'd probably have to go Kalpana.
Yeah, I'd be with you if she's pitched up. I think she'd win. What about you?
It's just interesting, isn't it? I think both Estrange and Calpana are probably better over a mile and a half. I'd be interested in Whirl, obviously in receipt of the allowance from the old ones. I like we both said, I was against her going into the Oaks. I didn't see that at all. Obviously was impressed by the Musidora run, but yeah, I thought she ran really well in the Oaks. I thought her and Mini Hawk were much the best in that race, and probably just with that weight allowance, I'd probably chance Whirl dropping back in trip.
Okay. Anything else you fancy on the weekend, Gary? Before we get into the best bet later on, is there anything that you want to mention?
I think there's a couple of races worth highlighting, Rishi. I don't know whether I'd necessarily put anything up as a bet, but there's a Group 2 for the fillies on Saturday at the Curragh Early Stud Stakes for the 2-year-olds. We could potentially have a rematch there between Lady Aman and True Love. Lady Aman missed Ascot. I think Ger Lyons obviously had very few runners at Ascot, so he could have quite a strong team at the Curragh this weekend. I think that's the plan for her. Whether True Love would reappear 10 days later, I don't know, but obviously that would be potentially very, very exciting. And one who I think will win if he pitches up Skukuza in the mile handicap on Sunday. He missed the Hunt Cup. Graham wasn't going to be suitable for him there. Yeah. He'll probably only come if it looks like it's going to be okay at the Curragh, but he hacked up on Guineas weekend under Ryan Moore. I don't know whether Ryan will be free this time. Aidan does have a couple of entries in it, but he's only 7 pounds higher, and it's pretty much the same horses he's going to have to beat again, so I wouldn't want to oppose him if he comes. Okay,
Skukuza one to mention. Anything else this weekend that you want to...
Yeah, a couple at Newcastle and a couple at York. In the Chip Chase, Spycatcher has run it the previous 2 years, finished second in 2023, when only a neck behind Tiber Flow, 5th beaten 3 lengths last year, but that was behind Montasib and Kinross. I think I'd be against Kind of Blue as a short price for this. I know he's unbeaten, 1 from 1 on the all-weather. They just kind of wanted to get a better experience into him. Yeah. Didn't like it over in France, was slow away, never really got involved, and I thought he was a bit short price. So I thought each way value on Spycatcher around 7s, given that you know that he likes the course and distance. Yeah. From the races previously. In the 140 at Newcastle 6 furlong handicap, we got a Ram back out only a week after finishing 6th in the Wokingham. Has a really good record on the all-weather, beating only a head and a short head on his previous 2 starts on the all-weather. Obviously finished behind More Thunder on 3 occasions and won the other. This is easier than Wokingham. Sean Levy's already jocked up and is around 7-2 with Bet365. And then across at York, the 155 at York, the Dubai Mile handicap, Archivist.
Yes.
Is entered. Well fancied for Royal Ascot handicaps. Didn't get in. This is a 0 to 90 handicap. Is rated 90. So he'll be off top weight in this. I imagine he's going to be very short if declared. Progressive 3-year-old. I think is a group horse. One of these ex-stout horses that's moved to William Haggett to Keithley Park. I'd be really interested in Archivist if declared for this.
I agree. He's 9-2 as we speak with Bet365
That's
for the Dubai Mile handicap.
Has to just be because there's a doubt about him running, isn't he? He won't be the colour of that if he runs.
I genuinely, runs, like we were I thought he'd be about 6-4.
Yeah, I think if he runs, he's going to be much shorter.
Yeah. And then an old fan favourite, just the final one, the 225, the Criterion Stakes. Nostrum has moved from Sir Michael Stout to David O'Mara. 14 to 1. Is a horse with a massive amount of ability. It's a really strong contest though, so it's good for a Group 3. You've got Lake Forest, Audience, Formal and Alianabi all jocked up. Yeah. But Nostrum, come on Rishi, we've got to do it one more time.
One last roll of the dice. Come on David, what can you get?
It's the system that cannot fail.
X'd out. Oh, come on guys, that's just rude. In fairness, he trains them to progress. Yep. So, you know, now that they have got a year older, they're going to progress. Perfect. All thanks to Sir Michael Stout. But yes, Nostrum in the Criterion. Archivist, I also like at York. And there are a couple of others that I also want to mention. There's a horse called Iron Fist, who Gary will probably know is going to run in the handicap, the 9 furlong handicap on Sunday at the Curragh. He was second, travelled like the winner over a mile and a quarter in a maiden beaten by McCree, who was sold at the Goffs London sale recently for 160, or went through for 160,000. And he looked all over the winner in that race, and he didn't quite see it through, but he quickened up nicely. And then his previous 2 runs, which had been on soft and heavy ground over 7, he's not had the best of luck. I think he's only got a rating of 84 going into this handicap. Interesting enough, he only cost €1,200 as a yearling, and he's in the Anamoine colours. And I couldn't, when I saw him running earlier in the season, I was like, he's probably got he probably costs a lot of it. He has got a nice pedigree. He's by New Bay. On the dam side, he's related to horses like Persian Fantasy, who the Dunlops used to train back in the day, like good family. So I presume something must have been wrong with him physically, and he only cost 1,200. But he's clearly got ability, and he's the bottom end of the handicap. And then there's another. So that's Iron Fist in the handicap on Sunday. There's one horse that I think this is the one. This is the retirement one. I'm going in hard on this horse. He's got 2 entries. His name is Pocklington. He's got 2 entries, one in the Chip Chase, for which he's 40-1, and one in the 6 furlong handicap at Newcastle on Saturday, for which he is 20-1 with Bet365. Now, he's run 5 times. He's 2 from 2 over course and distance at Newcastle. On his second start, he beat Army Ethos, who'd been second to River Tiber in the Coventry. I think Army Ethos was like 2-9 or something, but he beat him clearly on merit. And then the next run after that was behind your horse, Elite Status, in the Carnarvon Stakes, where he was too keen early on and was forward. Then he went to Royal Ascot and ran in the Commonwealth Cup, where he broke really well and was way too keen again behind Inner Sharon. And then he only had one more run after that, which came after a wind-up, where he missed the start over 5.5 at York at the E-Ball meeting, completely blew the start. If you watch the race again, half a furlong after the line, he finished 10th. It says he finished 10th of 20-something runners. But if you watch you watch the whole race, half a furlong more, and he'd have blown by the whole lot of them. He has not run since then, which has been a slight surprise, because I thought maybe that might bring him back for a race on the all-weather earlier, but he hasn't run at all since then. So he's going back to Newcastle. I presume he will go for the handicap, for which he's 20-1. And interestingly enough, PJ McDonald is going to ride in for the first time for Jeff Oldroyd. Harry Russell has ridden him in every start so far. PJ McDonald riding for Jeff Oldroyd shows a level stakes profit of £134.90 from 120 rides, or 118 rides. So Pocklington at around 20-1 with Bet365 for the handicap at Newcastle on Saturday. What is it?
We cannot accuse you of not showing your work there.
Yeah. Well,
that was impressive.
Even I'm getting excited.
Who knows? But yeah, I'm giving a Ram 7-2 for that. So, but he is 20-1 for the 200 shops nationwide handicap on Saturday. So that was a couple of others to mention.
I'd like to see you working for your best bet of the weekend if it's not that one.
And that's it. Okay, I think that's it for what we've got lined up for this weekend. Now, before we get into our best bets of the weekend, just to let you know, the free-to-play 6 Horses Challenge. It's available every weekend with free spins on offer if you get 2 or 3 selections correct. Prize pools available for 5 and 4 correct predictions, as well as a jackpot for all 6. T's and C's apply. And now we come to the best bets of the weekend. I think I've teased mine. Gary, as our special guest, you go first.
I've purposely kept this one up my sleeve till now, Rishi. I'm going to go to the 255 at the Curragh on Sunday, the Dubai Duty-Free Rockingham Handicap, and a real old favourite of mine, a horse called Kiki, trained by Eddie Lynham. He won 4 sprint handicaps last season. The only time he got beat in that run was on Irish Champions Weekend at the Curragh. He was a good 4th. Not beaten far that day. He's had 2 runs so far this season. First one perfectly satisfactory, finished 4th, not beaten far by a good horse of Fozzie Stacks. Came down 3 pounds, went back to the Curragh last time over 6 on Guineas weekend. Ran well. I think he's not quite as effective over 6, but still ran a good race. He's been nudged up a pound on the back of that, but he's back down to 5 now for this race on Sunday, which has been the target for the horse for some time. So at a track that he goes particularly well at, I'm hoping Billy Lee will be in the plate as per usual. Kiki in the 255 at the Curragh on Sunday.
Okay, Kiki for Gary on Sunday at the Curragh. Steve?
I'm going to go in the Northumberland plate and Golden Rules, having his only 10th start at the age of 8. Finished half a length second 2 years ago off a mark of 94. 1 run since, which has been full of promise at Kempton when clearly just needed in the run. Off a mark of 90 this year, 10-1 with Bet365. I thought that was a big price.
Okay, Golden Rules and the Northumberland plate on Saturday for Steve. And I think you know mine, but just to recap, Pocklington, 2 from 2 over course and distance at Newcastle on the all-weather. 2 starts after that in better company, the Carnarvon Stakes and the Commonwealth Cup. Way too keen, had a wind-up, missed the kick at York in a big handicap, but thundered home over 5.5 furlongs. Back at 6 furlongs on the all-weather. PJ McDonald rides for the first time with £134.90 level stakes profit for the Jeff Aldroyd stable, and he's about 20-1 with Bet365 for that 6 furlong handicap at Newcastle on Saturday. So Kiki for Gary, Golden Rules for Steve, and Pocklington for me on Saturday. And that's it. Gary, you're at the Curragh all 3 days.
I'll be there all 3. I've got a trip to Naas on Wednesday before that, so busy week.
Perfect precursor to 3 big days.
I would have said so, yeah.
And Steve, what about you after your Ascot sojourn last week, where you were out and about?
I'm in the studio for Racing TV on Saturday.
How did Chelmsford on Friday go?
No, it was good. Newmarket on Friday, it was good.
Oh, Newmarket, sorry.
Yeah.
Chelmsford was your first one.
It was the first one.
Yeah.
But it went very well. Tipped a 14-1 winner. That always helps.
Absolutely. And studio this week
Studio
on
this
Saturday.
week on Saturday, yeah.
Excellent. Well, have a great time. Gary, enjoy the Curragh. That is it for this episode of Racing Weekly, brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. Thanks to Gary and Steve for joining me on the show. As always, if you like what you've watched or heard in this or any of our previous episodes, then leave us a kind review on Apple Podcasts or in the comments section on YouTube. We're back in a couple of weeks' time. We're taking a little pause, but we'll be back to preview the Irish Oaks, and we have another Irish superstar joining us for that, Don McLean. But for now, from the Racing Weekly team, bye-bye.